So, why did I want to do Loving Vincent? My agent sent me the script, and it was just completely unique. The whole concept was something that I had never seen before, something I didn't even think was possible. So, and there were two amazing filmmakers, Hugh and Dorota, who were involved in the project, and I met them, and they were just so full of passion and enthusiasm on the project, and they'd worked tirelessly on it. And they showed me a short video that they had made already of some painting animation, and just completely took my breath away. And I'm sure just the vain part of me was like, I'd love to see myself painted. But no, it was, I mean, you can see behind. Yeah, I mean, I get all these beautiful paintings of myself. It's amazing. And also there were some really, really incredible actors involved. Saoirse Ronan, Helen McCrory, Chris O'Dowd, Aidan Turner. And so just a really great bunch of people. And yeah, it was just the most unique thing that had been put in front of me in a long time. So I was on board straight away.
Okay. And what about your character, Armand Rouland? What did you think about the character that you had to play?
Yeah, so I play Armand Rouland, who is a young guy that Van Gogh painted because he was the son of one of Van Gogh's best friends. And I love his portrait. It's this portrait with a really beautiful sort of greeny, turquoisey sort of colour behind him. And I remember looking at it thinking, who is this guy? He has this really particular expression on his face, kind of sort of slightly unsatisfied, bored expression. And I thought, who is this guy? And what's he all about? So that was what was interesting in this film, sort of really figuring out who this guy is and what his story might be. And in our film, you start at the beginning of our story, where it's a year after Van Gogh has died, and my father, who's the postmaster, gives me a letter, an undelivered letter that Van Gogh had written to his brother. And my father wanted his brother to have it, so he gives it to me and says, you have to deliver this. And my character says, what's the point of delivering a dead man's letter? There's no point in this. He's just like, I should be working, you know. My character's a bit of a drunk and a layabout and a feckless sort of, you know, idiot. So he gets this letter, and his father makes him go and deliver it. And throughout the film, he sort of has a self-discovery, which is sort of aided by his discovery of Van Gogh, which is kind of really interesting and beautiful, and kind of actually mirrored my discovery of Van Gogh as a person as well, because I didn't really know much about him before. I just thought he was this artist that cut off his ear. Everyone said he was mad, but we produced this incredible work. Armand didn't particularly think he was very incredible, actually, but so he kind of discovered that actually he was much more than just this madman that cut off his ear. He was this sensational guy that started painting, picked up a paintbrush at 28 years old, and in a matter of years just created some of the most memorable and prolific pieces of art that have ever been produced. I mean, you go to Amsterdam and you go to the Van Gogh Museum, and firstly you're just blown away by the work, then you're blown away by the size of this institution, this massive modern museum with all these millions of people flowing through it every year, all for one guy. So yeah, my journey was a similar one to Armand's, that you just a discovery of who this guy is, and it's just, yeah, it's brilliant. But maybe one of the reasons why I wanted to take the role was because my mother is a painter, and she's always loved painting, so I've been sort of surrounded by that, so I was sort of drawn to the project like that. And it kind of mirrored Armand's story in the movie, because his father loved Van Gogh, loved painting, and that was the reason why he got sent on this journey that we see in this movie. And I suppose that's kind of why I got sent on this journey, because I love my mother's painting, and we both, my character and myself, fell in love with Van Gogh's work and his whole character throughout the course of the movie.
And so, but was it the story of Van Gogh or his painting, or both?
Well, to start with, it was completely the painting that captivated me, because I didn't really know much about him other than he was this mad guy who cut off his ear, and everyone thought he was a bit strange. But then, through this movie, I understood more about the man behind the paintings, and suddenly the paintings became so much more interesting. They just became alive for me. To sort of, he's one of the first painters that really started painting with emotion, and that was really fascinating for me to discover, and through this movie.
And in terms of your character, how do you think your character changes during the course of the film?
So Armand changes from being this sort of feckless layabout who just thinks Van Gogh's a bit of a crazy man, to someone that's completely won over by Van Gogh and his spirit and his talent and his dedication to his art, and just in awe of him, the fact that he could pick up a paintbrush at 20 years old and then suddenly rise to become one of the most interesting artists of his day, and in hindsight we can see of all time.
Let's just go back to, because upstairs you were telling me about the moment that you took out you put on the little clip that your agent had sent.
Yeah.
And so maybe just something about being sent the project and coming to understand actually what the hell they were trying to do.
Yeah, so my agent sent me the script, and I saw this short couple-minute film of the production team had put together of how the process was going to work. And to start with, I was just completely baffled. I didn't understand quite how they did it, because it's such a complicated process. But then it was pretty easy. But then all it took was to understand that actually it is as difficult as you think it's going to be, and they actually have to paint every single frame. You're like, wait, how are they going to do that? No, that's actually how they're going to do it. They're going to paint 12 frames a second for the whole movie. So once I got my head around that, I was like, well, if they're willing to put in that work, I'm definitely willing to make this movie. And it was for me. It's funny because it's two polar opposite things. Normally you can spend up to 5 months shooting a film, potentially 2 months, 5 months shooting a film, but on this, I shot for 2 weeks, and these guys painted for 2 years. So that was kind of really interesting. That my process was not rushed, because we always spent our time and we really invested in the scenes, and it was great fun and we did great work. But my process was super quick, and then the painter's process is going to be super long. So we were shooting over 60 minutes of film in 2 weeks, which is a lot for movies. And my character is in every single scene and interacts with every single character. So I barely had a break. And I only got the script about 3 weeks before shooting. So I literally just had to lock myself in a room and learn, and then I'd come back at the end of the day, literally eat at this little Italian opposite my house, make sure I knew all the lines for the next scene. But it was kind of amazing, because I just came back, intensely learned my lines, went in, worked with Saoirse Ronan, came back, ate dinner, intensely learned my lines, went and worked with Chris O'Dowd, came back, went with Helen McCrory. So it was this amazing sort of whirlwind of a movie making experience, working with some really incredible actors, and it was a complete pleasure and a joy. Because when you're working that hard, everyone kind of comes together in a kind of tight community, because you've got to get it done, which is always fun. I mean, I felt jubilant after we finished the movie, because it'd been such an intense experience. We had to work so quickly, but we had such a great kind of crew and cast that it was a really fun experience. So we actually finished filming the movie in Poland, which was great fun. And they have this thing in Poland where they like to, you have a beer and you like to have a vodka shot to chase the beer. So by the end of the evening, I was completely smashed. Barely made my flight home, but it was great fun, and it was just a really, really fun job, and the Polish crew were particularly fun and great. So I'm here in Gdańsk, the Breakthrough Studio, visiting all the painters painting. So there's over 100 painters here painting, and a lot of them are painting me, which is a very surreal experience. But really wonderful. Normally you just shoot a movie and that's the final product. In a sense, that's what's on screen, and they just cut that together and maybe put a few effects on. But here, they're adding a layer of magic on top of everything I did, which is particularly incredible and special to see, because it's not just me and my performance that is on screen. I'm sharing it with another artist, a painter, which is a really nice. We're both performing at the same time, so that's a really nice kind of thing to witness. And going into each pav is, as they call pav, is where the artists paint. It's their own little studio. Each one has its own character, and even just being here for a couple of hours, you realise, all the painters are full of so much character and so much love and passion for the project. They have to, because they're working so hard. It takes, some of them are showing me, oh, let me show you the bit I've just made. I've just painted, and they click play, and it plays for 4 seconds or 5 seconds, and it looks beautiful. I go, oh, how long did it take you to do that? Oh, just 4 months. I'm like, what? So the amount of work and dedication is unbelievable. So I have to thank them greatly for their focus and hard work. So coming here after 14 months is a little surreal, purely just because I'm completely in awe at the amount of work that everyone has put in to get here. But making a movie is kind of a similar process. I've had films that take this long to come out, as well. Noah or Jupiter Ascending, where there's such movies with so much VFX. It takes a long time. But this is for me has been a more personal journey, really seeing this work develop, because it's not just you that's creating your performance. It's a bunch of very talented artists as well. So it's like we're both working in tandem, as it were, in a way. And I've really enjoyed watching this film come to life. You can see literally where certain shots have come from. You see the painter, and you see that come to life. And I see a group of painters that have been working on me, or a group of painters that have been working on Saoirse Ronan, and that's really kind of interesting and different. And normally when you make a movie, you make it, and then it sort of drops down behind an iron curtain, and there's this sort of lots of studio executives sort of will argue about this and that, and about, is this going to appeal to this audience? Are we going to make money out of that? Whereas on this film, it's purely just about the art and making it as beautiful and true to Vincent, and just doing Vincent proud. And so it's been a really sort of nice, wholesome experience in that sense. But I know it's taken a lot of work, and everyone who's involved with it we've had people fly in from Australia to come and paint. We've had people come in from America, from Cornwall in England. You've had like a really great dedicated group of Polish artists. We've got a whole studio in Greece shooting. So a lot of people have put in a lot of years of their life and are fully invested in it, purely because they like art and they love Vincent, not for the money. So it's really amazing to see such a passion project come to life.